The Star and D'Amico Show is brought to you by cheapesttshirts.ca. If you're looking for quality gear without overpaying, shop cheapesttshirts.ca. Huge selection for men, women, and kids. Tees, hoodies, headwear, bags, and more. Proud Montreal business. Order today, ship today, delivery tomorrow. That's cheapesttshirts.ca. Local, fast, and affordable. Brought to you by instacustoms.com. Do you need custom gear from a local Montreal business? Instacustoms.com has you covered. Custom shirts, hoodies, hats, and more made your way. Fast turnaround, great quality, and proudly Montreal-based. Check out instacustoms.com. Brought to you by Cabletel. For trusted alarm systems in Quebec and Eastern Ontario, choose Cabletel. Over 20 years of expert installation and top-tier protection for homes and businesses. Check out Cabletel.com. Email them info@Cabletel.com. It's Cabletel. Peace of mind you can count on. Brought to you by Morella's Steakhouse. Looking for an unforgettable night out? Morella's Steakhouse on Highway 132. It's just 15 minutes from Montreal, serving up premium cuts and bold flavors, and no tax on your bill. Book your table tonight at morellassteakhouse.ca. Taste excellence tonight. Brought to you by Little Bear. Give your pet the best with Little Bear Pet Supply. It's a proudly family-owned business here in Montreal for over 30 years. Chuck, Evie, and their all-star staff have you taken care of with all the top brands at the best prices, and they really care for your pets. Shop online at littlebearonline.com or visit them on St. Catherine across from Westmount Square. It's Little Bear Pet Supply. Brought to you by McLean's Pub. Head over to McLean's Pub, 1210 Peel Street in the heart of downtown Montreal. Great food, cold drinks, and big games on all the screens. McLean's Pub, good times and great company. There he is. He's back. Marco D'Amico, welcome back to the live stream after the Montreal Canadiens head into the Olympic break after a dominant 5-1 performance, chasing the game for a minute, and then they weren't. Marco, great to see your face again on the live stream, and always nice to know how much our audience missed you for that one episode that you weren't a part of. How goes it today, my man?
Good. We're going to try to be as active as possible, internet willing. Apologies if things go a little up and down today, but we'll make do with what we have, just like the Canadiens made do with what they had yesterday in a 5-1 win over the Winnipeg Jets.
Samuel Montembeault got the start in goal, and if that wasn't his best performance of the season, it definitely ranks in the top three. Brand new mask, brand new version of Sam Montembeault. I mean, do we look at this? I mean, it seems too simple, right? I mean, with Marco Marciano in his conditioning stint, played 2 really good games, and now as Laval Rocket goaltender coach is now the goaltender coach of the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, where are we at looking at the impact of Marciano as it relates to Sam Montembeault's solid performance in the 5-1 win in Winnipeg?
I think you have to also look at the history that Marciano has with both of those goaltenders, right? And I think that is kind of underlooked or maybe not talked about enough. But Marciano has been working with Samuel Montembeault since he was like 14. He was the goalie coach for the Blainville-Boisbriand Armada when Montembeault was there. So he's been very close to Montembeault for, over a decade now. And the same applies to Jakub Dobeš. I mean, when Jakub Dobeš came in to Laval, he played 51 games as a rookie. That's a record in the AHL for a goaltender. And at the beginning, he was a train wreck. And it was Marco Marciano, who doubles as both a video coach and a goalie coach, that really kind of helped him work. Because the competitive nature, as we see, is always there. But it's more about like toning down maybe the athleticism and bringing a little bit more technique. Well, that's exactly what Marco Marciano does. And I don't think it's lost on me that the goaltending has been much better in accordance under Marciano already over the last week. I think it's too soon to say that it's because of him only, but I think that change in conversation, that change in dynamic also had an impact on the goaltending. And I felt like maybe outside of the first period for Jakub Dobeš against the Minnesota Wild, I think the Canadiens' goaltending has been right back to where they needed to be since Marciano took over as goalie coach.
And, it was Montembeault's first start in a minute, out-dueling Connor Hellebuck on the other side, a .973 save percentage on 36 saves. Marco, you're going to like this. Let's hear from the Montreal Canadiens. Here's Captain Nick Suzuki on Montembeault's performance in Winnipeg last night.
Yeah, we'd be in a big hole to start. I think, he was sharp right away, saved ourselves from getting a big whole, and I thought he played a great game, and it's great when both goals are going like that. Yeah.
So Nick Suzuki, in the aftermath of watching his goaltender make those timely stops, something I think that has been an area of concern for Montembeault's game. And look, I mean, it doesn't take a hockey IQ genius to point out the obvious. When they get back on starting on the 26th, when they face the Islanders, that's going to be another marathon run. Was it 25 games in 47 days? I mean, you can't put this on Dobson. They're going to need both goaltenders. If we're talking about a team that goes to the break, Marco, depending on what happens with Buffalo and Pittsburgh tonight, if Buffalo wins the game, they're going to jump in and fall into second place. Montreal will slide down to third. They go to the break finishing no worse than third in the Atlantic Division, which is an unbelievable accomplishment. But they're desperately going to need both goaltenders here in the marathon stretch run.
Yeah, I think that you absolutely need both goaltenders. I think it's something that you can't have one goalie and ride them to the very end with this kind of schedule. Normal scheduling, I give it to you. You have a game every second day, the odd back-to-back. That's okay. But right now, you got to be careful with it. You have to make sure that you're not over-relying on one to make sure that the other one isn't, up to speed. Thankfully, I believe that Marciano is going to be able to help in that regard. We'll see what happens. I think that as long as the Canadiens shore up how they play in front of those goaltenders and maybe limit the amount of high-danger chances, the Canadiens will be in a good situation, but that's easier said than done when you get into the later stages of the season and you have teams that are, making significant pushes to make the playoffs. I mean, you look at the Columbus Blue Jackets in the last 11 games, they've been insane. The Toronto Maple Leafs have started winning games again. Ottawa has started winning games again. The Buffalo Sabres, I think, lose a game every full moon at this point. So it's, they're kind of on fire as well. So it's going to require both goaltenders. And I know that's not a sexy answer because everybody wants to see the number one goalie. And I think in this market, we've kind of been spoiled with the star number one goaltender. But, I think you could all seek solace in the idea that for the first time in 40 years, maybe a goalie doesn't have to save this team for it to be competitive.
We saw the Canadiens get off to a bit of a slow start in Winnipeg. It was Winnipeg was on top of Montreal, out shooting them at one point, 8-1, 9-1. Josh Anderson takes a penalty. Kyle Connor gets Winnipeg on the board first. But I'm curious to get your perspective on, a little bit of a turning point in what turned into a fantastic night for two guys in particular. And yes, we're going to talk about Lane Hutson's goal of the season candidate, no doubt. But here's Josh Anderson on the energy that his line brought in the final game before.
Like I said, we just try to create energy and momentum for the next line that goes out, and sometimes we have slow starts where we got to be that line to switch it, and I thought we had some good chances, good looks, and they went in for us tonight. Like I said.
So 3 points for Anderson and Gallagher. I mean, early on when Martin St. Louis rolling his lines, I thought, and I'm curious to get your take here, when the Anderson-Gallagher tandem went out there, I mean, they brought the energy, kind of helped bring the ice back to the Canadian side. What is this? Is this veterans, guys that know when to push hard at the right time, guys that have been in the league? It's over 400 games as a Canadian now for Josh Anderson, that we can look at these veteran players and expect them when the time, cliche, when the going gets tough, that these guys stepped up when the Canadiens needed them to and brought that energy in Winnipeg.
I feel like Winnipeg doesn't have the means anymore, but they certainly play a playoff style. And having those kind of veteran players step up in those games and be physical and be intense, I think bodes well for the Canadian on the stretch because they're going to need them the most. And I feel like when you look at a guy like Josh Anderson, he's ever more important to this team down the stretch in the playoffs. And, if you're going to have any success in this Atlantic Division right now, you're going to need your bottom six to step up. You have the benefit of having Alex Newhook come back, right? He'll be back in the lineup probably when they get back from the Olympic break. Alex Texier is probably going to be healthy when they come back. You add those two guys to your bottom six, and all of a sudden, combined with how well the bottom six is already playing, I mean, Kirby Dach, Zach Bolduc, We just finished talking about Gallagher, Phil Danault. A lot of people were iffy on that trade at the very beginning. I think, again, last night, 66% on the faceoff.
Huge.
His draw, he wins that draw that immediately results in Josh Anderson's, game-winning goal. It's little details like that win you games in the playoffs. And I feel like you're starting to see those little details. And it's good that it's coming from the veterans. I mean, hell, what a week for Brendan Gallagher, right? Everyone thought he was finished. Some were, even though he has a no movement clause, some were ready to send him to Laval or force him into retirement by not playing anymore. I think he's the player probably that's going to benefit the most from this 3-week break, to be completely honest. And I think that's going to allow him to really kind of play his game down the stretch because, from my conversations with the Canadiens and those around the Canadiens, they were absolutely gassed. One of the most intense schedules in the league in a year of intense schedules. So I look forward to seeing how it all ends up shaking out when they come back in February.
Thanks so much for being with us. If you like what you see, we can really appreciate the support of the channel. Thank you so much. Obviously, our MVP, Ryerson, helping spread the word in a massive, massive way. Shout out Ryerson. Shout out Steph from Brossard, obviously, a longtime loyal listener. To Ron Keniston, big shout out for the ongoing loyal support. Don't forget, friends, smash that like button. And we could talk about, Jaden Struble slots in for Arbor Jackeye. Immediately has an impact. This in the aftermath of Jackeye playing less than 6 minutes in his last game out. Struble slots in, gets the assist on Anderson's goal. And then 1 minute and 16 seconds later, the call, courtesy of RDS.
Montréal encore, alors que Kapanen repousse plus loin pour lui-même. La passe à Gallagher et vers Anderson maintenant. Voilà en vitesse, Hutson! Mais c'est la but! Comment tu fais? Hellebuck n'en revient pas! Oh, j'ai hâte de voir à la reprise. Ça semblait pourtant fini là pour Hutson. Et c'est 3-1 Montréal.
Mais Pierre, je ne sais pas comment répondre à cette question. Je ne sais pas comment il le fait. Si je le savais, je serais peut-être encore sur une patinoire. Avec ce talent-là, c'est complètement fou. Regardez la façon que Hutson glisse la rondelle derrière lui. Donc, un pivot rapide reçoit la rondelle derrière lui, s'ouvre complètement et pas le gardien de vitesse derrière. Simplement entre le bouclier et le poteau.
Est-ce qu'il y a eu des cours de Cole Caulfield?
Peut-être des tirs restreints, mais c'est son habileté. Et c'est une tendance que Hutson a. Quand il va recevoir une rondelle derrière lui, au lieu d'utiliser son patin, il va tourner complètement ses hanches pour la récupérer. Et un autre pivot vers l'avant pour battre le gardien. Et Anderson, un but et une mention d'aide dans cette période.
There's the great Pierre Hood and Bruno Gervais on the call. What about that goal impressed you the most?
Probably the reception of the puck in transition while skating backwards and then coming back forward with the forehand to take the shot. I mean, that is just an elite level amount of skill. And then to be able to have the wherewithal to roof it in the 2 inches that Hellebuck was giving him over the shoulder, that's insane. That to me, when like I watched that, the first thing that came to my mind was, think about the play that Lane Hutson did against the Minnesota Wild on that Demidov goal. And then you look at that and you're just like, Norris caliber defenseman out there, being strong defensively, didn't give Winnipeg much on the ice, and they're a heavy team. So apparently it looks like Lane Hutson can take a check or two and keep on ticking. But I think the element that really impressed me was then he would just turn around and go the other way. Because how did that play start? It started by Lane Hutson killing the play in the defensive zone, getting the puck to Kapanen, Kapanen sending it up the ice to Gallagher, and here they're off to the races. And it was Hutson that went from end to end and was the guy by himself. Nobody could handle him in coverage because they were caught flat-footed. And he's able to receive that puck, reversing, go back forward from the forehand, and top G's. Elite hockey play from end to end. Norris caliber play.
What can Hab fans expect from 48? Right? I mean, he's going to turn 22 on February 14th. He's a Valentine's Day birthday boy. And, when you look at where he's at in scoring, right? You look at the minutes that he plays. I mean, he's not up in the Cale Makar, Zach Werenski, Quinn Hughes kind of territory, but is that the ceiling? Is that a guy that as he gets older, Quinn Hughes in The Athletic and the Arpin Basu piece, rave reviews about Hutson's game. And the takeaway was, wait till you see this guy between the ages of 24, 27, when he really kind of fills out. I mean, is that what the fan base can expect? Guy who can play more minutes, plays more situations?
Yeah. I think the thing to keep it in consideration is I think it's almost a luxury that the Canadians don't need to use him as much as the other defensemen. And I think that's an okay problem to have, right? Like, you don't need to have him out on the first PK unit because you have Dobson, because you have a Gooley, because you have a Matheson, right? That's just a strength from the organization. And I think you should be able to run with that and be comfortable with it. If the Canadians were not as deep on defense, yeah, probably he'd be playing more and he'd be playing closer to the minutes of defenseman that you pointed out. But I think when you look at a player like Cale Makar, I think is generational. There's not much you could really do about it, right? But I think Hutson is at a point where, unlike those other players, there were people ahead of him when he started. And I think that changes the dynamic a little bit. But, for me, it's how he plays with the minutes that he's given. And the minutes that he's given, he's second in the league in even strength points. He's an elite play driver for the Montreal Canadiens. And what I like is that he's basically, I wouldn't say dragging because he's doing well in his own right, but Noah Dobson now is getting the rub offensively from the time that he's playing with Lane Hutson. And not simply just because he's passing Hutson the puck. It's because Hutson, by default, will attract coverage, and that opens up ice for Dobson. And you don't want to give Dobson open ice, as we saw yesterday. You give him that open shooting lane, his shot is hard. It will probably generate a rebound, and then you'll have Johnny on the spot and Oliver Kapanen just pull it in and shoot into an empty net. So we're seeing that more and more with that pairing. And I think, again, if the playoffs were to start today and Lane Hutson and Noah Dobson is your top pair,
oh boy,
analytically speaking, that's probably one of the better top pairs in the league. Probably, but I'd say easily, a top 10, if not top 5 pair in the league analytically.
Once again, Habs Nation shows up in a massive way on another well-traveled road game. It had provided this funny question and answer between a Winnipeg reporter and Jets head coach Scott O'Neill. Listen to this.
Weird to play in an environment at home when there's so many fans of the other team in this attendance, and it got really loud when the other team scored.
Yeah, that's pretty disappointing. That's probably the worst I've seen in my 4 years back here tonight. That was really disappointing.
They did it again. They did it again. We saw it. They put Jake Sanderson on tilt. They did it in Buffalo, and Habs Nation, almost a sea of red in Winnipeg, Marco.
You have an attendance issue. I wouldn't be complaining personally.
No kid. Even when they had 116 points last year, we were talking about attendance issues and money and gate revenue, and Winnipeg Jets season ticket holders not thrilled to go to a game and selling their tickets at a premium.
You know who doesn't complain about too many Canadians fans? The teams in Florida during the holidays.
Amen. Yeah, no kidding, right?
They make bank on those games, and part of me is like, can you imagine how much money the Canadians? Well, I mean, they sell out every game anyway; it doesn't really matter. But can you imagine if the Canadians had holiday games at home?
Oh my gosh!
Think of all the money you would make. Anyway, I digress. I don't work for the Canadians marketing team, but it's something to consider. And again, kudos to Canadians fans, because I know we have a lot of diaspora Canadians fans that watch this show that aren't in Montreal, that show up every time the Canadians are in their city. And I tip my hat off to you, because that's not an easy thing to be a fan of a team that isn't where you live. And so when you show up in such numbers, it really does impact the other team more than you think. And kudos to you. Kudos to the way that fans show their love for this team. And the only thing I got to tell Scott O'Neill is there's an outdoor game in October, and we may see another sea of red. We'll see what happens.
Don't forget, Marco and I are going to have full coverage on the regular as much as we can, right? I mean, Things, Marco, I guess, are in flux in terms of what's going on. And obviously, the men's national program getting set to play Czechia on the 12th of February. And we'll have breakdowns. Luckily for us, right? I think it kind of fits into our timeline. Can we say that with games early on in the morning? We're going to be able to be here live and react to Canada and their march to gold with Nick Suzuki and Team Canada. And we'll get into the nuts and bolts and rolls and all of those things. So don't forget to subscribe and like to our channel so you don't miss anything, please. Once again, the Montreal Canadiens kind of flexed their muscle in the 5-1 win over Winnipeg, coming from behind in that 1-0 first period lead and then scoring 5 unanswered. Here's Captain Nick Suzuki on his team controlling the game eventually last night.
It felt like a little bit of a slow start, but kind of found our legs, found our game, and probably feel like late in the first we kind of controlled the rest of the game, and that was a good effort from everybody. Yeah.
So, Marco, what is it like? What's the TSN turning point when they internally recognize, oh, it's a slow start to our game? I mean, obviously it's a tribute to how skilled they are, right? But what do they do when they flip the script, so to speak? What's the strength that allows them to do that?
Established and lengthy offensive zone possession. I think that's the number one thing with the Canadiens. When their transition game is on and when they're able to get their flow going in the offensive zone and they're able to keep things moving, I think that the Canadiens are a dangerous team because when it comes to the combination of puck possession and speed, there are a few teams in the NHL that can keep up. The Buffalo Sabres are one of them, probably. When they're on their game, because I know people are going to bring up the last game, the Colorado Avalanche are definitely one of those teams. The Minnesota Wild are definitely one of those teams. But it's only a handful of teams that would really be able to keep up with the Canadiens, and all of them are closer to contention than the Canadiens are on their timeline. So that's a really good problem. And so when the Canadiens get going that way, they overwhelm the opposition in such a way that it's very difficult to defend. Like you look at the Kapanen goal, the first goal, Noah Dobson takes a shot from the point. Why was he given that opportunity with that open shooting lane? Because they cycled Winnipeg in a way that forced them to open up and spread out so they can cover more ice. That opens up a shooting lane. And then you go to Oliver Kapanen, who sees this all happen, drives to the net, is able to pull the rebound and score. So taking advantage of chaos is the Canadiens' super secret weapon that they've really started to hem into, because that chaos could be cycling. That chaos could be goaltending, covering posts, trying to figure out what's going to happen. And then you beat them short side like Cole Caulfield's done. There's driving to the slot when there's a defensive breakdown like we saw against the Minnesota Wild a couple of times. They do this really well. The only thing the Canadiens have trouble with is doing that really well at the beginning of the game. There's always like a feel out process with them where they want to see how they could take advantage in the offensive zone. Where I'd like to see the Canadiens do more of is basically impose themselves the way we saw them impose themselves in the second and third period, as opposed to waiting it out in the first period. Though, again, because it's a Western Conference team and they don't have that much experience playing against the Jets, they played them in December the last time. I get it. But, when you start playing against teams in the East that you've played 3 or 4 times this season, you want to see them get a little bit more familiar and take advantage of those habits.
Yeah, it was kind of a little bit of a slow start for us. Bad penalty by me. They score, and then I think we started to turn around at the end of the first period, and then kind of took over from there. We had a lot of good chances tonight, and obviously Monty made some unbelievable saves. He played really solid for us, so it was a huge game for us, knowing that this last one before the break. Yeah, it was.
There's Josh Anderson, Marco. Obviously had a huge impact in the game last night with 3 points. A guy who doesn't play on the power play. One guy who has been playing on the power play, but it looks like he's starting to contribute and obviously gain confidence. Let's talk about Kirby Dach and his role on the Canadiens' top line. Going to the net, smart hockey IQ plays, this week winning board battles that result in goals, result in chances. Your reaction to how Kirby Dach is playing and getting rewarded with 6 points in his last 4 games?
Well, the pace is consistent, right? Like I think as a winger now, he has less of, he doesn't have to overthink the game. He just plays the game that's in front of him. I'm really sorry for quoting St. Louis on this one, but it actually works. But he's playing the game that's in front of him. Very strong in the forecheck. That stick is really long, so he's able to kind of come in and really kind of put that pressure on right away. I think he's strong along the boards. Like, he's not the greatest stick handler, but because of the size of him and the length, a little bit like Slafkovsky, as long as you have that half a second more to make a play, which he does due to his size, he looks very dynamic with the puck on his stick in transition, and he's able to make plays quickly. And I think you look at that Gallagher goal, that puck gets deflected right to him. He's able to corral it and immediately sends it over to Gallagher for the goal, right? Like, that takes a certain level of skill and handedness that you wouldn't normally see, on your typical like third line kind of player. So to me, there is top six potential. There always has been when it comes to Kirby Dach. I just never saw it at center. And I think that if he can continue to stay healthy and continue to play this game, even if it's middle six, even if you eventually see him as a really good third line player, when healthy, I think this is the kind of Kirby Dach that you can expect, because he just has so many elements that scouts love in his game that make him effective. The question was simply, could he put it all together at center? I don't think he ever will, but as a winger, I think he could be a very interesting power forward type playmaking winger. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now on the top line.
Canadians go 4-0-1 in their last 5 games. And as we mentioned previously, so if you're just joining us, I'll remind you, the Buffalo Sabres take on the Pittsburgh Penguins, and that will be the end to their pre-Olympic portion of the regular season. And as a result, based on the fact that Utah beat Detroit, John Gibson, 21 saves. The Red Wings have lost 4 of 5, so they're cooling off a little bit. There was a seesaw game in Florida between the Bruins and the Panthers. Bruins had leads of 2-0 and 4-2 and lost on a Brad Marchand shootout winner. So Florida right now is 8 points back of wild card 2. The Montreal Canadiens can finish no worse than third place in the Atlantic Division. How surprised are you of the run of success this season? They're on pace for over 100 points. They're almost 20 points ahead of where they were. I mean, year over year, Marco. I mean, I'll put my hand up. I didn't expect this. I mean, what's your take on how competitive this team and how battle hard they've been all year?
Yeah, I think, at the beginning of the season, we talked about this in our predictions. I thought third in the Atlantic or first wild card spot was where they would land.
Yeah.
They're definitely ahead of it. Even if Buffalo wins tonight and the Canadians go back to third,
yeah,
that's fine. But I didn't think the Atlantic would be this competitive when I made that prediction. And so third place in the Atlantic doesn't mean today what it means yesterday, because the 3 teams that are in the Atlantic division that would be 1, 2, and 3 are also in the top 8, 9 in the NHL standings overall.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Which is nuts. So again, to me, I think as of this moment, the Canadians are third in the East overall. Bonkers. Didn't have that on my bingo card. So I think, if we want to look at why is this possible? How is this possible? Especially considering the Canadians had a stretch where they had league worst goaltending, or at least, flirting with it when it came to between them and the Ottawa Senators. First and foremost, I think the upgrade on defense, be it through the development of Lane Hutson or the acquisition of Noah Dobson, completely changed the Canadians' transition game. One of the best counterattack teams in the NHL, and it's not by chance. Those 2 guys are off the chain when it comes to breaking up plays and getting the puck to go up the ice. Absolutely amazing in that regard. You look at the way that the forwards have evolved. Nick Suzuki, steady as usual. Cole Caulfield, pacing for 45, 50 goals. That was similar to last year around this time. I think what's changed to me is the development of some of the younger elements. I wouldn't say the Kent Hughes elements, because Kapanen was drafted by Bergevin, but let's call it as such because they've taken care of his development. The next wave behind Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield has taken off, or has taken a step. I feel like Juraj Slafkovsky well on pace for a 60-ish point season. Ivan Demidov, you can make the argument who's going to win the Calder. I don't personally I don't care if he wins it or not. I think Matthew Schaefer is having a ridiculous season for an 18-year-old defenseman. But I would say that Demidov is playing better than any Canadiens forward rookie that I've seen in my lifetime, bar none. And then, you have Kapanen that's, again, like he doesn't have the qualities that you would look for a number 2 center, but the combination of the three simply makes it work. And in doing so, his goal scoring is what it is, but it's his two-way play to me that makes him so impressive. And that continues to elevate on a regular basis. So when you have those guys, a legitimately offensive second line that materializes compared to last year, you go from being a playoff bubble team to being a team that everybody is basically saying, yep, that's a playoff team.
Mm-hmm. You referenced Phil Danault in the dot yesterday. And just the Canadiens, and along with Phil Danault, obviously, have been more consistent in the face-off circle. And Phil Danault won 67% of his face-offs. How important has he been in terms of the balance for Martin St. Louis' forward group?
I mean, he's got 9 points in 21 games, and you have to factor in the first 5 or so games he was trying to get used to the system. So we could really say he's got 9 points in his last 16 games, which is, a 45-point pace. Even if it's a 40-point pace in a full NHL season, that's worth $5.5 million all day, every day, right? Like you try to sign a player like that on the open market, it may cost you more. Look at what Christian Dvorak cost the Flyers, right? So I think you factor in the offense that he's getting and you combine it with the defensive push that he's added and the face-off ability. And, to me, like I said, he didn't get a point on the Josh Anderson goal, but that face-off win would have been like the third assist.
Yeah.
It's in those kinds of motions are invaluable. It's not something that necessarily shows up on a stat sheet, but like you have to factor in that those kind of set plays happen very often in the playoffs. It's what makes the difference between extended zone time and potentially a goal and the puck going the other way and the offense being in your end instead.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not measurable because we don't have the metrics to correlate offensive zone time or at least goals expected from that offensive zone time and face-off ability. I mean, we don't have that yet as a statistic. They do have it in certain set plays, like when a ball is thrown in soccer at a certain place, what are the odds that you produce offense from there? We don't have that kind of situational statistics yet in the NHL. I'm sure it'll come. But when it does, unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to go retroactively back. But that's the impact that a player like Phil Danault has on this team, because those crucial left shot faceoffs, he wins them more often than not. Like 70% on his strong side is what I saw. And I think that's just massive when it comes to playing down the stretch.
Let me put this comment on the board, and I want to address this. Wishing Marco nothing but the best. Sean, it was the second time I showed up at McLean's to find out that it was canceled. First time was a Mexico trip on a Saturday. I guess I'm missing the cancellation alert. So let me address this very quickly. I sincerely apologize. I think we could have done a better job. I'll take the blame for this. We did blast it out on social media. But these were things that, you just have to take me at my word, were beyond our control. It was not the intent to cancel, but life happens. And unfortunately, I think next time, I hope it doesn't happen again, but if we have to cancel last minute style, I think the course of action on my side will be maybe a quick video blast where I can come out here and kind of lay the groundwork, because I guess not everybody's on their phone, not everybody's following the social accounts, but it was there. So I do apologize for that. I'm sorry we wasted your time and that you took time out of your day because you care about the show and you went to McLean's Public House to watch the show live. But I'll repeat myself, it was beyond our control. It's family first above all, no matter the circumstance. And so we'll be back live, and Slap Happy and others that care about the show and came to watch us live and we couldn't be there, you come tell me and I will buy you a drink. I'll buy you something to eat. I will make up for this the best way I can and liquoring you up so you can forget about what happened. But I just wanted to apologize because I know there are a few people that reached out. So that's it. We'll just do a better job of kind of sorting that out. But we will be back at McLean's. Don't have a date yet, but it's going to happen. But I wanted to just address that. That's all. So I apologize again. We talk about Phil Danault. We talk about the balance, right? What about the job Martin St. Louis is doing, man? Like we talk all the time, Marco, about the players, special teams, goalies, the defenseman not playing, out of the lineup. Can we put some shine? Can we put some shine on the job MSL is doing here, man?
I think what he's allowed these players to do is express themselves offensively. I think, there's a lot of galaxy braining that happens when you bring in an elite offensive player or 3 or 4 into a team that's rebuilding, especially once you get a taste of the playoffs and the results, right? You really want to continue the winning ways, but sometimes you really need to address the problems. And when you address the problems, you move forward. And I think the Canadiens addressed a couple of problems that they've really kind of allowed them to be effective. First of all is the forecheck. Martin St. Louis prones a very aggressive forecheck. Maybe didn't have the elements to be able to pull that off in the past, but even with Alex Newhook out, I feel like they have those elements. And when he comes back in, what a forechecker that man is. So I think he's going to fit right in. The Canadiens being that aggressive team that is always on you, that is relentless. I think at 5-on-5, it's one of the main reasons why they've seen such an uptick of late is just because they've gone back to the basics of their forecheck and making sure that they're just absolutely always on you and aggressive and giving it their all. And I've been in the room with Martin St. Louis. That guy talks to you, you want to run through a wall for him. So I get that, the Canadiens players, they're young. Consistency is going to be an issue for a lot of them. You look at the kid line, sometimes they have out of this world games, and then sometimes they're completely, neutralized. More often than not, they have good games, but it happens. And so once that consistency comes in, once those habits are put in place, you see a liftoff. And I think this is more the culmination of what he's done in the last 4 years is that liftoff is happening. Like I'll give a direct example. Cole Caulfield's two-way game is a direct fruit of Martin St. Louis spending time with him on his position. Like a lot of people will be like, Cole, and I agree, Cole's a great player, but I watched Cole play in Wisconsin. I watched Cole play in Laval. I watched Cole play under Ducharme. It's not even in the same realm of possibility in the way that he thinks the game today versus before. And a lot of that needs to go to the coaching staff. Juraj Slafkovsky, same thing. Juraj Slafkovsky, everybody remembers, would just like get the puck and try to skate it up and get to the blue line and then panic. And I think getting those reps in, ensuring that, he consistently was communicated on what to do, helping him with the strategy involved so he doesn't overthink the game and instead of looking to get bailed out at the blue, instead it's how do I fix this problem? How do I have someone in front of me. How do I get around him? What do I do? Do I dump it? Do I try to go around him? Do I make a move to the inside so that he goes to the inside and I go back to the outside? Those elements are things that Martin St. Louis talked about. Now Slafkovsky is a force on transition and zone entries because he's developed the habits, the body misdirection, the trying to think of options so that he's not over-reliant on Cole and Nick anymore to be able to execute like that. And that transfers to the kid line and why they've been they've been super effective down the stretch as well. So yeah, 100% I'm going to give Martin St. Louis credit on this. There are elements in his decision-making that I sometimes question myself. I'm not an NHL coach, but I sometimes wonder why he decides to, play a man-to-man defensive coverage in the defensive zone, and why he only uses timeouts and overtime when the Canadiens get a penalty, get a power play. Some elements like that, but these are details, and I think the bigger details he's got down pat. So I'll let him run. I think the next step for Martin St. Louis now is going to see how he adapts in the playoffs, because I think that's what differentiates a good in-season coach versus a championship winning coach?
Obviously, the Olympic roster freeze came and went, and I do want to talk. I want to pick Marco's brain on what happened with Gavin McKenna and what that might mean in the aftermath of yesterday's news. Before that, though, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. If you like what you see, you can always support us by just liking and smashing that like button today and subscribing. We've got daily Habs content, and we're going to have some roster projections coming out on Friday. Members, of course, to the channel, you can join the Star and D'Amico channel for $2.99 a month, cancel anytime. And we're going to talk about Alex Newhook's return, the future of Patrick Laine, and kind of what the depth chart for Martin St. Louis' forward group is going to look like. But before we dip into that, before we talk about Gavin McKenna, Marco, your reaction to the New York Rangers finally did it. Artemi Panarin is a Los Angeles King. I read that the Seattle Seahawks are ready for Super Bowl 60. That Seattle threw a bunch of money at this guy, and he was, I guess, he just had his mind set. His heart was in L.A., and now he's an L.A. King. So two-pronged question. What did you make of what Chris Drury was able to do? And does this turn the L.A. Kings now into a playoff team?
Well, okay. So first and foremost, I don't think that Panarin was only sold on LA.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's a convenient thing that everyone's trying to put out to save face right now. But I could tell you that they had conversations with the Tampa Bay Lightning on contract. So make that of what you will. But Tampa thought that they were in it yesterday. So that gives you any idea that he picked LA. Like, I think Paul Theophanos, his agent, pooled a bunch of teams. And when they couldn't, when it came down to, contract discussions and where he wanted to be and whatnot, he ultimately ended up choosing LA. But I don't think it was LA or bust. That is pure positioning to save face. Now, I would like to point out the perfect sweet irony that Chris Drury got basically screwed over by a no movement clause. Because he's been such a gem in trying to go around no trade clauses through the use of waivers to threaten his players to move to the team he wants to trade him to. But it turns out that the no movement clause is what actually ended up costing him what should have been the biggest return on the trade deadline front. And because of that no movement clause, it limited the amount of options. LA had the strong suit. I think that Liam Greentree, albeit a really strong B prospect, not an A prospect that you would assume for Panarin, and then a conditional third and fourth. I mean, listen, it is what it is. But the fact that LA put conditions on their playoff trajectory leads me to believe that they're going to continue to try to add, because they have the cap space and they still have their 2026 first round pick, which they didn't include in this trade.
Did you think they faced pressure to get a player like Panarin to play with Kopitar in his final year?
Not only that, it's to ensure that the Kings have next year to look forward to, right? Because Kopitar is done this year. And so there is that element as well. And you want to be able to go and bring in an elite player like him. But I can tell you, man, Ken Holland was not brought in to rebuild this roster. They were not going to go the rebuild route. I know that teams, reporters were saying they're considering what direction to take. There was no consideration. You don't sign Cody Ceci and Joel Edmondson and didn't decide the year after you're going to rebuild. It's not happening. So, I think LA is doubling down right now and trying to ensure some sort of transition while kind of regrouping their core around Quinton Byfield and Brant Clark on defense and center, and then kind of building around those. They're a desired market. Like that's a one thing that they're always going to have going for them, is they're a desirable market. They're going to have loads of cap space to be able to play with. So to me, I don't necessarily think that it's going to be problematic. Will they ever be a top echelon team? No. They're going to be the kind of team that it's where in the next 2 years, they're going to be like, if we get in, anything can happen. And, I think Canadiens fans could tell you that that's not exactly a recipe for success, but, it is what it is. And that's the way that Ken Holland is going to run his team.
I want to talk about Arbor Jackey's future with the Montreal Canadiens. Some guy who doesn't play a lot of minutes when he's in there. Jaden Struble got over 12, got an assist on the Anderson goal in front of the net there. Struble had a decent game, but we'll pick up on that in a second. Let's dip our toes into the Gavin McKenna waters. He was charged with first-degree felony aggravated assault and misdemeanor simple assault, 2 summary counts of disorderly conduct for harassment and engaging in a fight. The maximum penalty for first-degree felony aggravated assault in the state of Pennsylvania is 20 years in prison. And, this all stemmed from what reports are saying after they played at the Beaver Stadium in the outdoor game that Penn State did with Michigan, that it took place at 8:45 p.m. on January 31st. Again, there's nothing concrete, but I'm sure, people are aware. Marco's aware. If you're not, there were some allegations that there was some guy bothering McKenna and his family, allegedly calling Gavin McKenna's mother a whore. And it got to the point where this guy suffered fractures, had to have surgery. We don't, again, nothing concrete. There is video footage of this, and whether that gets released, I guess, we'll see in time. But what does this mean as far as a guy who right now is expected to be maybe the number 1 overall pick? I mean, just this story alone without all the facts to work with, Marco, I mean, are we talking about something that's going to impact his status as far as you're concerned today?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, inevitably it's going to impact his status. Now, if it impacts it positively, because some teams are like, he punched a guy out for defending his mom, that's honorable.
Yeah.
That's a viewpoint that I'm sure some general managers probably feel, maybe behind closed doors. But it's, if you have a criminal record, first of all, if he gets charged and has to go to jail, I doubt it's going to get to that point. But obviously he won't be there for his draft, right? So like there's that to consider. I'll say this. There's too much noise coming out of this situation where I heard basically the same thing, that this was basically provoked through intense harassment on his end, and that they tried to diffuse the situation. They tried to get away from the situation. And the only problem with this, really, first of all, you shouldn't punch people in the face, generally speaking, especially when you're in your draft year and you have everything to lose. Like, I get it. But, I think in that kind of a setting, it's hard to make that call. And obviously, like, we don't have all the details, so it's difficult to make like an assessment of like how things happen. So I'll leave it at this. When you get punched in the face by an NHL player that's set to make millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, he's already making a nice chunk of change in NIL money. Wouldn't you take your shot after he broke your jaw for being, I'm not going to say the word because this is family friendly. I'd take my, if I were an a-hole that was harassing a family, I'd definitely try to take my shot and trying to, get a payday out of it. So I get what is happening here. And all I would really say in this situation is let us wait for the full, truth, and then we'll go from there. But if this is what I think it is, and it was done in a way where he was being harassed, yeah, you shouldn't punch a guy in the face. But I've rarely seen an athlete, have to do jail time for this. Like, he may get a slap on the wrist, he may have to do community service. Yeah. But like, we have
first time offender. My understanding, he's not serving any time.
No, we have wife beaters in the NFL that play the next week.
Yeah.
So like, is that a good thing? No. But like, on the spectrum of things I give a hoot about, punching a dude in the face that's harassing you consistently after you ask him to stop, especially when he's calling your mom names, at 17?
Yeah.
Look, 17-year-old Marco D'Amico might have, done the same, if not worse.
Come on, you're 18 years old. You're 18 years old. You're full of testosterone. And who knows? Like, we'll wait for the process to play out, obviously. Yeah. Right. But This was shocking news that that became
Look,
public yesterday afternoon.
If the information that I received is correct, I get it.
Yeah.
Does that mean he's going to walk away scot-free? Unlikely. Is he going to get jail time? No. That's what everyone's throwing out there so that you click on their article.
Oh, it's so dramatic. I mean, it's a payout situation. Like I even have a hard time. It's probably likeliness. Speaking to our lawyer friend Eric Macramella, like it's there's going to be no jail time. It doesn't seem likely, and it also doesn't seem to be a trial. If anything else, he's out on $20,000 a bond, and very likely to be kind of a payout situation, and we move on, right?
Look, I honestly, I think it's he may have to give this guy's first signing bonus, and that makes it all go away.
Right.
I think it's as simple as that. I just think it's very unfortunate, and especially a player like that, like Gavin's had to go through a lot over the last year. A lot of those generational expectations and all the shit that's being talked about him on a general basis on basically every draft-related platform. I get it. I get the pressures. I spoke to him in December before the World Juniors. He's going through it. So I understand the athlete. Now, obviously, again, don't punch people in the face. Be the bigger man. You're in your draft. You're a walk away. But I tell you that as, again, a 35-year-old man, not a 17 or 18-year-old kid.
Correct.
I wouldn't have gone to jail for punching a guy in the face for doing that in Montreal because there's obviously the ability to prove that you were being harassed in that process. And there is a context of self-defense through harassment, but Pennsylvania is a different place.
Yep. Personally, I'm more offended that Tate McRae is a USA Olympic hockey spokesperson on TV. That offends me to no end.
That lady is compromised. She is compromised. She is compromised. I'm sorry. But listen, Jack Hughes is also half Canadian, or actually, would have been Canadian if his father wasn't the assistant coach of the Orlando Solar Bears at the moment of his birth. So there's flip-flopping on both sides, and who knows? Who knows? There may be some luck in the future for Jack Hughes where he accidentally has a giveaway at center ice against Team Canada.
I think we should end it here. A little bit of a technical issue, I think, on Marco's side here.
I made it to the 50-second mark without problem.
Listen, better than we thought. We're going to have Habs roster coverage on the channel tomorrow. Marco, a pleasure to have you back, and fun talking hockey with you as always. And we'll be here. Don't forget, like and subscribe to the channel. And we're going to be here throughout the course of the Olympics. We're going to have some post-game shows in the aftermath of Canada's Olympic tournament. So very much looking forward to that. So keep it locked here. Hit that notification bell so you're going to be able to stay on top of all of our coverage. Marco, thank you, man.
Always a pleasure, guys. Pleasure to be back. And like you said, we're going to be here every day talking during the Olympics, covering the Laval Rocket. Any information we hear on the trade front will be discussed on this channel. So make sure you subscribe, and notifications, of course. Some days we may be putting out content later than usual because some of the games will be at 3 p.m. Some of the games will be at 11. So again, the notifications button is always your best friend, and we'll be able to bring you the content you always love and ask for. So we'll be here. We'll make it happen. And then when late February comes along, when the Canadians start running up again, we'll make sure to have that covered for you as well.
And don't forget, you can continue to support us. We've partnered with some great people like Cheapest T-Shirts and Insta Customs and the Best in Alarms and Cabletel, and a great spot for a date night at Morella's Steakhouse where you can save tax on your bill. We only partner with the best because these are products that we use and that we trust. And that's why I'm confident partnering with these people and telling you, you can really get some great deals from our partners.
Send this to Julian.
Get that screenshot in there. Thank you, everybody. A shout out to all of our favorites, our MVPs of the show. Ryerson, as always. My man here, Ron Keniston. Thank you, Stefan from Brossard. We love you, brother. Mr. Niles, thank you, as always. You guys are just the best. We love you. And listen, I only dropped these. I gave you a shamalama ding dong the other day. I'm only going to drop these when the moment is right. When the moment is right, I don't want to oversaturate this. All right. Thanks again, everybody. And make sure to check out our content tomorrow on the Habs roster moving forward. Okay. was a Cuckoo Banana show. Have a great day, everybody.